Camera is rolling, sir. All right, sir. Okay, started to record. Get back this there. All right, here we go. That was take two. Yeah, that's right. Take two. All right. What's up, Joe? All right. All right, here we go. You ready? Hey, how you guys doing out there? I am with my good friend Alex Casillas, otherwise known as Dr. K, and as some know him as Mr. New Jersey.
All right, Mr. South Carolina, cut it out.
Mr. Garden State. Oh man, he's got so many aliases. Anyway, we're here today. Wanted to talk to you a little bit today, Alex, about vitamins.
Okay.
And specifically, you know, this time of year, it's January, February 1st actually today, but specifically about vitamin C.
Okay.
You know, we hear a lot of stuff about vitamin C and its importance. Some say it's not. Some people say it's not that big of a deal. Some people say it's the main vitamin. And what is your opinion specifically on vitamin C?
Well, you know, taking any kind of
as a supplement. I'm sorry, as a supplement.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, as a supplement, I think it's important that everyone should supplement because you know the recommended daily allowance of taking vitamins in general in the human body, really 80% of the population is deficient. So it is said that it would actually require 27,000 calories a day to reach the normal daily allowance.
Wow.
So I would imagine that would look like a stack of pizza from the floor to the ceiling.
No doubt.
So we have to supplement it if we're going to stay healthy.
Gotcha.
We have to get. We don't get the nutrients from the foods that we eat.
Gotcha. So what you're saying is that in order to get the amount of vitamins that we need, with the food sources we have, we'd have to eat about 27,000 calories.
That's right.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy, especially when the normal American diet is about 2,000 calories.
Yeah.
But, you know, in particular, especially this time of year, people ask about vitamin C, you know, is it important? So everybody knows vitamin C is really important to help with the immune system, but the kind of vitamin you take is also important. You know, in regards to, is it fake, is it synthetic, or is it something that's really going to work?
Well, and that was my next question. So as far as a vitamin C, taking it as a supplement, we know obviously vitamin C is important, eating oranges and in your food source.
Right.
But as a supplement, because our food source is neglecting, for lack of a better word, the amount of nutrients we need, what type of vitamin C supplement do you think would be the best, or are there a variety of supplements?
So yeah, there's good formulas out there, and for over 20 years I've always had a live food, whole source philosophy about taking supplements. You know, we try not to eat anything with a label on it.
Gotcha.
But you know, that being said, what's common is people buy supplements from Costco or the supermarket, and if you look at the label, everyone recognizes ascorbic acid. You know, they say, well, that's vitamin C.
Yeah.
The problem with it, it's just a fraction of the whole vitamin C. So the ascorbic acid in manufactured state synthetically is really chemical. You know, it's hydrochloric acid in corn syrup, and that's what makes vitamin C. And you know, you wouldn't want to drink that every day to stay healthy.
No.
But whole food vitamin C is the other fractions. It's the ascorbic acid, the rutin, there's bioflavonoids, and then there's also the K and J factor, you know, together, without getting too technical, that makes the whole food.
I got you.
So a better way to look at your vitamin bottle supplement is make sure it's from whole food. Oranges, cherries, green peppers, that's what I would recommend.
Gotcha. So you're saying there is a drastic difference between the cheaper vitamins and then the whole food source vitamins?
It is drastically different because if taking a synthetic vitamin actually can do harmful things to the body. I remember this research study about people taking ascorbic acid, vitamin C, and it actually created a thickening of the arteries instead of a health benefit. So people are more prone to heart disease. So On the other hand, people taking whole foods supplements to stay healthy had better health outcomes.
Gotcha. So basically, when we're looking at vitamin supplementation, specifically vitamin C, because of the way it's made up, the chemical way it's made up, when we put that into our bodies, what you're saying is that it creates an imbalance, right?
It does.
Because you're not getting the total vitamin C, the flavonoids, and all the other parts of it, you're creating an imbalance in your body.
Yeah, and that's so important to remember.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when you watch the news and there's reports about there's no evidence of this vitamin or taking that vitamin has a healthy effect on the human. Well, it's because they're comparing it to synthetic vitamins. So everybody knows if we're eating whole food, live source things, it's going to be better for us.
Gotcha. And the whole food vitamin source, you sell that at Health Source, correct? Or at your place, correct?
Yes.
Not Health Source, no. It's got to change. What is the name of your
Proactive Care.
I'm sorry, Proactive Care. It was Health Source, yeah, sorry. So at Proactive Care though, you have those whole vitamins for sale, correct?
Yeah, we carry whole food live source supplements,
Gotcha.
you know, and because it's what we believe in, that's what my family has taken for years and years.
Yeah, and for the people who are out there who, let's say, can't come to your place or whatever, are there any places you recommend, any companies you recommend buying whole food supplements from?
There's a few good companies out there. Standard Process is a great one that we use. Divine Nature, Optimal Health System.
Optimal Health, I think I bought some of those
Premier
products before.
Labs. So those are companies that have also a whole food live source philosophy, and that's what you want to look for. I'm sure there's many more out there, but the important thing is read the label and look for the food source on the label, not chemicals.
Gotcha. So if the first ingredient is absorbic acid,
That's synthetic.
gotcha. So get rid of it. Yeah.
Right, get rid of it.
Gotcha. It's fascinating to me, Alex. That we talk about imbalance, right? And of course, what I do at Brisk Brothers, training people, my first goal with any customer that comes in is to create a muscular balance in their body.
Right.
And it's funny because a lot of people will go to a gym and they'll start working out, and let's say if they're really strong on their front part of their leg, they do a lot of leg press.
Yeah.
But they're not doing anything for the back side of the legs, the hamstrings, the glutes, the lower back, and that posterior chain. And what happens is they start creating a muscular imbalance.
Right.
So even though they're doing something good for them, working out,
Yeah.
they're not approaching it in the totality of the body.
Yeah. It
Right.
works the same way in your physical
Exactly the
sense.
same way. Exactly the same way in diet, and that's what I find fascinating is these parallels between the nutritional side and also the physical side of fitness.
It's just the way the world works. So the question comes up that I see in my practice, people ask all the time, well, they're thinking about joining a gym. Is it really worth it if they can only make it once or twice a week? I mean, what does it really take to get a good result?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And it's funny you bring that up, man, because most people, if they don't have, I'm going to go 100% and do this, if they can only work out once a week because of time constraints or what have you, they are still benefiting themselves dramatically. And even though you don't necessarily see a lot of the physical results, it is imperative to work out. If it's only once a week, work out once a week. What that does, and this is something I try to drive home to my clients all the time, is I get a lot of people, especially men, are really bad about this.
Right.
They're like, well, I've got a lot of work coming up next month, so I'm just going to skip next month and then I'll come back in January. It's the worst idea you can do. If you're going to come in for one time a week for whatever the duration period is, come in once a week and you will at least maintain what you have or most of what you have.
Okay.
And then when you get to a time period in your life where you are able to actually train more frequently, then go ahead and go as many times as you can per week. Of course, the answer to that question as far as like how often should I work out would really depend on the individual.
Okay.
Right?
Makes sense.
So if you are like a physical therapy type patient, in other words, if you're completely inactive, you have a lot of structural injuries, one of the big things I like to do is increase the amount of frequency of workouts, so increase the amount of times per week you work out, but decrease the duration.
Okay.
A lot of
How about as far as the weight?
and the weight would be really
Okay.
light too. So you really want to focus more on the body positioning during the workouts, making sure you're using correct form, and stimulating blood flow to those areas.
Okay.
And so long as you're going fairly slow, controlled, and using good body positioning, everything should flow pretty well, and it's going to limit your risk of any injury. So as far as like if you're, say if you're in your 40s, 50s or older, and you haven't worked out say a long time, decade or whatever, you have some injuries, the best way to approach it is try to do something every day. Now, if you can hit the gym 4 or 5 days a week, go in for a little bit of cardio, about 5 or 10 minutes, hit a few machines, a couple of free weights, and then finish up with some stretching, you'll get plenty of workout in. And one of the problems is that people try to rush the process of fitness.
Yeah.
And the big thing I try to get people to do is just take your time, discuss, have a plan. We talked about that before, having a plan when you're in fitness.
Right.
But make sure you focus on what your needs are and understanding also the time constraints that you have. So if you're going through a period, and maybe a month or maybe a year, maybe longer, you can only work out once a week. Continue to work out that one time a week, because it will set a good solid base for you to build from. If you don't work out at all, you lose that base and you're starting over again. And it's so much harder.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's brutal. And as we get older too, we talk about this a lot getting older, but as you get older, if you're 40, 50, 60, and you haven't worked out in 15, 20 years, and you have aches and pains, it is so much harder to get back in the gym.
Yeah, noticed that myself.
Yeah, so as far as, I kind of waffled a little bit, but to answer your question, you really have to take a step back if you're wanting to start working out and getting into fitness. You want to take a step back and evaluate how much time do I have? Can I create more time? If not, take the amount of time that you have and utilize that the best possible way you can by spending it focusing on your diet and getting into the gym or your exercise program, whatever that may be, as many times as you possibly can without overdoing it. Right?
Great information.
Yeah, and a lot of people, because they haven't worked out in a while, they get, I've got to do this, and they get all amped up, and they get overzealous, and they try to do too much too soon.
Yeah.
So, we have this.
Injuries and
Exactly. So,
discouragement.
yeah, we've got to get this balance in our fitness life.
Really good information.
Thanks, man.
That's great.
Thanks. Well, hey, I appreciate the info about vitamin C, and we will see you next time. You guys out there, if you have any questions about vitamins, give my boy Alex a buzz at Proactive Care. Got it. Just kidding around. Proactive Care, and come see him. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Is that okay?
That was pretty good.
I was going to let you keep on rolling.
Okay.
Did I waffle too much?
No, I thought that was really good.
Cool.
Your guy could edit it.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
want me to ask you about stretching?
That'd be cool. So I will do one about stretching, and what do you want to do on the?
I want to talk about
vitamin D, maybe, or?
Just say other vitamins that I could mention, like vitamin D, vitamin B.
Yep.
What's the difference?
Cool, man. You ready?
Yeah.
I'll give you a second.
There you go.
I'm gonna do it. So I think you have to resync it. So. All right, here we go, buddy. Hiya. All right, clear that head out, mate. All right, here we go. Hey, we're coming back at you with my good friend Alex Casalias, and today we're going to continue our conversation about vitamins. So Alex, we talked last time about vitamin C, the importance of vitamin C, right?
Yeah.
And probably the most important thing too is finding out the makeup of the vitamin C that you're taking.
Right.
Is it a whole food source or is it a chemical source?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so important.
So what other things, what other vitamins would you say, we've got vitamin C, we know that's very important, especially this time of year to boost your immune system.
Sure.
What other type of vitamins do you think would be a necessity that people have to really come to?
Well, I think people ask all the time about vitamin E and vitamin D, being that, we don't have the sun to really give us that kind of nutrient that is synthetically
Okay, that's all. We'll start again, man. Don't worry about it. We'll start again. I'll kick it up. It's all good. I do the same thing. Man, sometimes when you get, what I found, man, when I get that wavering in my mind, if I can just grab back a hold of that consciousness that I was in, I can just get back in gear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Good. Alright.
I was saying synthetic too much instead of synthesized.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Dude, I
My tongue tracks there.
Alright, you ready?
Good.
One. Hey. Hey.
That was
Alright, that was it. Alright, here we go again. 1, 2, 3. Hey guys, how you doing there? I'm coming back at you with my good friend Alex Gasolias, Dr. K from Proactive Care. So Alex, we talked in the last video about vitamin C and the importance of vitamin C.
Right.
And we also talked about, which is probably even more important, the makeup of certain supplements. And we want to look for, make sure if you're buying a supplement, you're looking for a whole food source.
Right. True.
And we're not buying these synthetic vitamins, which are actually going to throw our body out of whack, right? It's out of balance. So we talked about the importance of vitamin C, boosting the immune system. What other vitamins, in your opinion, do you think would be helpful to people?
Well, of course, we have vitamin B is really important for the eyes and brain, even gut health. You know, vitamin E, vitamin D for the immune system,
Gotcha.
especially this time of year when the supplement isn't being synthesized in the body from the sun. So, you know, one thing to look for with vitamin B supplements is, you know, the cobalamin. That's what the vitamin is made out of. So, cobalamin. So, the B supplement that is most absorbable in whole food is called methylcobalamin.
Okay.
That's what I look for on a label. That's where you'll know you're getting a good whole food life source vitamin B. As far as the others, you know, like vitamin D, for example, there's fractions. Just like we talked about vitamin C, you have to have the fractions. With vitamin E, you know, it's a fat-soluble vitamin. I always think of this sorority. You know, you have to have, you know, what we get in the store is alpha tocopherols. You know, so vitamin E is made out of the tocopherols. But you have to have the other part of the sorority. You know, you have to have the beta tocopherol and the delta tocopherol to make it complete. So you want to make sure that's on the label.
So again, going back to the whole food source, right? You don't want to get drips and drabs of these vitamins. You need to take it as a whole.
That's exactly right, because it is a lot less expensive for companies to produce synthetic supplements.
Yeah.
So they'll just have a fraction of what that is. The FDA doesn't control that because that is exactly what you're buying. But in the human body, it doesn't work that way.
Got you. And just like, you know, we discussed before, you and I discussed before, it's amazing to me, the word balance keeps on coming back in my life over and over again. And, you know, when I'm training people, the main focus that I have when someone first comes into me is make sure they're muscularly balanced.
Yes.
And from what you're telling me about vitamins and the sources of vitamins, it's no good just to grab a portion of that. We've got to get the vitamin in its totality, right?
That's
so
right.
like all the factions that make up vitamin C,
Yes.
all the little groups that make up vitamin E. Now with vitamin B, there are lots of different B vitamins, right? Like B12
Right.
and all that stuff. What would your recommendation be of that as far as, would you take a collective, like lots of different types of B vitamins together, or would you buy them individually?
Well, generally, if you get a good methylcobalamin, it covers everything because that's how it occurs in nature.
Okay.
You know, so the fermented red rice yeast
Yep.
is where a lot of vitamin B complex is created from. And you know, we can eat that in a food source, but you would have to eat about 3 pounds to get the nutrient density of a capsule.
Sure.
So methylcobalamin in a natural form is what I recommend once a day. It really helps with your body functions.
Gotcha.
So,
Now,
yeah.
when you take the vitamin, are you taking that with a food specifically? Are you taking that with food or just on it?
Most supplements you can take with a meal.
Okay.
If it's you know, what we would call an essential supplement, like your essential fatty acids or vitamins and minerals, those are things you would take every day. And then there's also other kinds of supplements we call therapeutic supplements that are taken to really offset an issue or an imbalance that's going on in the body.
Gotcha.
Now, those are taken or prescribed by your functional medicine practitioner based on what the objective is.
Got you. So when we take these vitamins, we want to take them as a collective whole food source. And depending on the vitamin, most of the time we're going to take it with food. Is that correct?
Most of the time it is, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Exactly right.
And so then when we get these nutrients in our body, this is going to make you feel, I'm guessing, a lot better. Does it help out with specific things in the body, or are you going to get like a feeling of just feeling better? What kind of, how would people out there expect to feel when they're taking these vitamins, the whole food source vitamins on a regular basis?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the chronic diseases we see today are because people are malnourished and dehydrated. So when you start doing those good things to the body, you're functioning at your highest level. People start thinking better. The fat-soluble vitamins for cognitive function. Today we see so much autism and depression in society. Many times people are just, like I said, they're just malnourished, dehydrated, and they've been that way for years. And then the body starts to break down.
Gotcha.
So there's so many things we could do every day naturally for our daily lifestyle to make us feel better.
Yeah, but this isn't like, it's not like drinking an energy drink. You don't take a vitamin like, whoa, my gosh, I feel amazing, right? It takes time.
It takes time, right?
So would you say, this is my personal experience from taking vitamins. One thing I realized is I never really felt that like jump, like I felt a lot better. But when I quit taking my vitamin regime, I felt a difference.
Yeah.
I felt worse, right?
You can feel like something's off.
Yeah, it's exactly. It wasn't quite right. Again, out of balance a little bit.
Yes, right. Yeah. And on that subject too of being out of balance, people ask me all the time, how important is stretching? And I know you do a lot of stretching at your gym, and
Yes, sir.
what kind of guidelines or information could I share with my patients in regards to stretching?
Stretching, yeah, sure. Well, as far as flexibility work goes, I'm a big believer, a big proponent of stretching every day. When we stretch a muscle, there are multiple reasons why we want to stretch, right? But one of those reasons is, let's say when I stretch your legs, as I'm pushing on that leg and that hamstring, you feel that tightness in that hamstring.
Right.
But as you're stretching that hamstring, what happens is the muscles undergo what's called an eccentric contraction. That's basically where the muscle fibers, as I push on the leg, are getting pulled apart. Then they reach a certain point where they will not go any further unless I push really hard, which I don't do, and they actually contract. And that's called an eccentric contraction.
Okay.
Anytime you take your muscle under any type of contraction, it helps to tone and strengthen the muscle. Okay? So stretching is a very passive form of strengthening and toning the muscles, which is one of the reasons why yoga is so good, right? Yoga is a really good form of stretching and exercise because you're predominantly dealing with eccentric type contractions. And that in and of itself is a part of the totality of fitness, but it's not the totality of fitness. We want to make sure that just like on vitamins, where you don't just take absorbic acid, which is chemically made and throw your body out of balance, we don't want to just come in and think that stretching is the only key to fitness, because it isn't. It's one tiny part. But I'm a big believer in stretching every day. As I said, when you stretch a muscle, it helps it in a very passive way to strengthen and tone that muscle. The secondary advantage of stretching every day is you're bringing blood flow to those muscles, right? And with blood flow, you have nutrients, hopefully coming from vitamins, so that you're taking your supplement regime, that help out with not just the muscle, but the ligaments and tendons and everything. So blood flow is really one of the main things we want to focus on when we're stretching. Because when we're stretching, we're bringing nutrients and shuttling nutrients to those muscles and to those joints.
So I've heard that it's important to actually warm the muscle up before stretching. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, in fact, what I usually do with my clients is I get them to warm up for about 5 to 10 minutes. If I've never trained someone before, I stretch them before I work out to see kind of where they are. And before we stretch, we get about a 5 or a 10-minute warm up to get that core body temperature up.
Okay.
And this isn't necessarily like you don't have to weight train beforehand, but you want to just get that core body temperature up, get that blood flowing around the whole body, not just in one area.
Very good, excellent. How about as far as the warm-up exercise or doing some cardio with a weightlifting type of regimen? Is that something that you recommend?
For sure, like before the workout, for sure, dude. So what I usually do, especially if someone's training legs, chest and back, I like to get them to get a 5-minute warm up. I don't stretch people before the workout. What I like to do, on a regular basis, unless they have a specific need, what I like to do is to get them to perform a few exercises with very lightweight, going slow and controlled, getting the muscles to contract both eccentric and concentric, and stimulating blood flow to specific areas that we get ready to train really hard.
Right.
So I save the stretching usually for after the workout, when the body's already kind of been beaten down a little bit, especially if you work out at Bruce Brothers Gym. Your body's been beaten down a little bit, and what happens while you're working out is your body secretes lactic acid, and that's one of the things that causes the burning in the muscle. The best way to get rid of that lactic acid is to stretch right after the workout.
Okay.
So it flushes out that lactic acid, and remember, lactic acid is one of the things that causes soreness of the muscle.
Right.
So if you stretch after your workout, the blood flow goes there, flushes out the lactic acid. Again, we know that blood flow brings nutrients to the muscle.
Yes.
So stretching after a workout is going to help the muscle to recuperate dramatically quicker,
Yeah.
and just enable you to be overall much more healthy.
Right. Well, I've always have been impressed going to your gym because I see you and your trainers always stretch the clients before and after. And I've been to many gyms all over the country, and I haven't really seen that, so
Yeah.
I know it works. How about as far as homework for your clients? Do you have them do things at home when they're not at the gym?
Sure. Yeah, I definitely do. Again, depending on the person, depending on what their needs are, but also depending on their personality. So
Okay.
one thing about being a trainer, you have to deal with all these different personality types.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to deal with them around about the same time. And so we have some people that come in and are very self-motivated, and most of those people have to put the reins on and kind of pull it back a little bit so they don't overtrain.
Okay.
And then we have other people who just don't want to work out. So depending on where you are and all that kind of stuff will depend on kind of how I deal with that person and get them focused.
Excellent. That's great information.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Well, hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you need any whole food vitamins, go see my boy Alex Casalias at Proactive Care, and we will see you next time.
That's cool, dude.
Good?
Yeah.
Good? Was I waffling a little bit? Not bad.
Nah, I thought it was good.
Sweet.
And once you and I get in the zone, man.
That's what I'm
Don't
saying.
stop it.
I know, once I start talking, I'm like, man, am I talking too much?
No, you don't.
Do you want to do any more? Get another one?
Let's see, what do you want to talk about? Let's see, you could probably get 4 or 5 videos out of that
That
one.
right there, yeah.
I think that's good.
Okay.
We'll have the guy edit it and let me know if you want me to pay him and
No, man.
tell me what to do.
I got it covered, bro. We
Just
keep on hitting these, man. We'll keep on getting
I
them.
think what'll happen, we'll get better and better at it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And once people actually start viewing my social media, I think it'll be quite good.
Yeah.